On a calm river in Japan, as the evening light begins to fade and lanterns are slowly lit one by one, a quiet gathering forms upon the water, not driven by noise or celebration, but by a shared sense of reverence and stillness. At the center of the river, a large wooden boat carries a Buddha statue, carefully placed and surrounded by soft glowing lanterns, its serene face illuminated gently, creating an atmosphere that feels both sacred and deeply peaceful. Around this central boat, many smaller boats drift slowly, filled with people standing close together, their hands pressed in prayer, their voices low and steady as chanting begins to rise across the water. The sound is not overwhelming, but steady and rhythmic, blending with the gentle movement of the river, forming a quiet harmony that calms the mind and softens the heart. A man stands quietly among the crowd, his thoughts once filled with stress and uncertainty, but as he watches the statue and listens to the chanting, he begins to feel those thoughts slowly fade. The boats move forward together, not in haste, but in balance, as if guided by something unseen, the reflections of lantern light stretching across the surface of the water like endless paths of light. A young woman stands near the edge of a boat, her eyes fixed on the statue, feeling a sense of peace she has not experienced in a long time, a moment where nothing needs to be changed or solved. Children stand beside their parents, watching quietly, absorbing the atmosphere even if they do not yet understand its meaning, sensing that something important is taking place. As the procession reaches the center of the river, the space grows quieter, the chanting softer, as if everything is dissolving into a deeper stillness beyond sound. The Buddha statue remains unchanged, steady and calm, a symbol of stillness within movement, offering a silent presence that everyone can feel. A monk continues to chant with a low, steady voice, guiding the moment without effort, allowing the atmosphere to unfold naturally. Time seems to slow. No one checks the hour, no one rushes forward, because in that moment, there is nowhere else to be. Eventually, the boats begin to turn back, not through command, but through a shared understanding, moving together as one. As they return toward the shore, the sounds of the outside world slowly reappear, but they feel distant, softer than before. The statue is brought back to land with care, and everyone bows their heads one final time in silence. There is no applause, no dramatic ending, only a quiet conclusion that lingers in the air. People step away from their boats and return to their lives, yet something within them has shifted. The man who once felt overwhelmed now feels lighter, not because his problems have disappeared, but because his perspective has changed. The young woman carries with her a sense of calm that remains even as she steps back into her routine. And the river continues to flow, unchanged on the surface, yet for those who were there, it has become something more than just water. It has become a reminder that within the noise of everyday life, there is always a place of stillness waiting to be found. As the last lanterns drift farther from the center of the river, their reflections stretching and breaking across the moving water, the silence that follows feels deeper than before, not empty, but full, as if something meaningful has settled quietly into place. The man walks slowly along the riverbank, his steps unhurried, his breathing steady, noticing how even the smallest sounds, the rustling of leaves, the distant movement of water, feel clearer than they once did. He realizes that nothing in his external life has changed, yet everything feels different, as though a weight he had carried without noticing has finally been set down. The young woman pauses before leaving the riverside, turning back one last time, her eyes reflecting the fading light, not searching for anything, but simply acknowledging what she has experienced. She understands now that the peace she felt did not come from the ceremony itself, but from a moment of awareness that she rarely allowed herself to have. The child, walking beside his parents, remains unusually quiet, his attention no longer pulled in every direction, but resting gently in the present moment, even if he cannot explain why. The parents exchange a brief glance, recognizing something subtle in their child, a calmness that had not been there before, something that cannot be taught, only experienced. Further away, the monks return to their temple, their figures gradually disappearing into the distance, their role in the ceremony complete, yet their presence leaving a lasting imprint on the atmosphere. The river flows on, carrying away the last traces of lantern light, returning to its ordinary state, yet holding within it the memory of what has passed, invisible but not gone. The man stops once more, closing his eyes for a brief moment, not to escape the world, but to reconnect with that quiet space he has just discovered within himself. He begins to understand that this space does not belong to any place, any ritual, or any moment in time, but exists always, waiting beneath the surface of thought and distraction. As he opens his eyes, the world appears unchanged, yet he sees it differently, not as something to struggle against, but as something to move through with awareness. The young woman walks away with a sense of quiet strength, knowing that while her challenges remain, she now carries within her a way to face them without being overwhelmed. The child looks up at the sky, now darkening as night settles in, the memory of light on the water still vivid somewhere deep inside, shaping a feeling that will stay with him long after the details fade. The sounds of the town grow louder again, conversations, footsteps, distant activity, but they no longer feel intrusive, they simply exist alongside the stillness within each person. No one speaks about what has changed, yet many feel it, a shared understanding that does not need words, only presence. The river, once again, becomes just a river to those passing by, but for those who were there, it has become a quiet teacher, offering something simple yet profound. That stillness is not something to search for in distant places, but something that can be found in the middle of everything, if one is willing to stop and notice. And as the night deepens and the last traces of the ceremony disappear, what remains is not the image of the boats or the statue, but the feeling left behind. A feeling that does not fade easily. A quiet awareness, a gentle clarity, a reminder that beyond all movement, there is always stillness. As days turn into weeks, the memory of the river procession does not disappear but transforms, no longer vivid in detail yet quietly present in the background of thought, like a calm current flowing beneath the surface of daily life. The man begins to notice how often his mind once rushed from one worry to another, never resting, never allowing space, and now, even in the middle of his responsibilities, he finds small moments where everything slows down without effort. He does not force it, does not try to recreate the experience, but simply allows it to arise when it does, like a natural breath returning to its rhythm. In conversations, he listens more carefully, not just to the words being spoken, but to the pauses between them, to the tone, to the quiet meaning that often goes unnoticed. He realizes that much of what he once reacted to no longer affects him in the same way, not because the world has changed, but because his relationship to it has shifted. The young woman continues her work, facing the same uncertainties, the same pressures, yet something within her remains steady, like an anchor that does not move even when everything around it does. There are still moments when she feels overwhelmed, when old habits return, when her thoughts begin to race again, but now she recognizes it, and in that recognition, there is space. Space to pause, space to breathe, space to not be carried away. She begins to understand that peace is not a permanent state, but a way of returning, again and again, to the present moment. The child grows, and though time carries him forward into new experiences, new challenges, new understandings, that quiet morning by the river remains somewhere within him, not as a clear memory, but as a feeling he cannot fully explain. Sometimes, in moments of silence, he feels it again, a sense of stillness that seems familiar, even if he does not know where it comes from. And perhaps that is enough. The monks continue their daily lives, their routines simple, repetitive, yet never mechanical, each action carried out with attention, with awareness, as if even the smallest movement holds meaning. They do not speak of enlightenment or transformation, not in grand terms, not in ways that seek attention, but through the way they walk, the way they sit, the way they exist. The river flows through seasons, through rain and heat, through calm days and restless nights, unchanged in its nature, yet always different in its expression. People continue to come and go, some for ritual, some for work, some simply passing by, each one bringing their own story, their own thoughts, their own unseen weight. Some notice the quiet, some do not, and that is as it is. The man returns to the river again, not out of necessity, but out of a quiet inclination, standing by the water without expectation, without searching for anything. He watches the current move, the reflections shifting with each small wave, and he understands something that had once seemed distant. Nothing needs to be added to this moment. Nothing needs to be taken away. It is already complete. The young woman, on a different day, stands at the same place, unaware that others have come before her with the same quiet intention, yet somehow connected through that shared stillness. She closes her eyes, and for a brief moment, everything becomes simple again, not because life has become easy, but because she is no longer resisting it. The child, now older, walks along the river with friends, laughing, moving quickly, yet at times he slows without knowing why, looking out at the water as if something there calls to him. He cannot explain it, but he does not need to. Because not everything needs to be understood through words. Some things are understood through feeling, through presence, through silence. And so the ritual continues, not only in the form of boats and statues and chanting, but in the quiet ways people begin to see differently, to listen differently, to be differently. It is no longer confined to a single morning, or a single place, or a single event. It becomes part of how life is lived. Not loudly, not dramatically, but steadily, quietly, deeply. And in that quiet continuity, the true meaning of the journey reveals itself, not as something distant or unreachable, but as something that has always been here, waiting beneath the surface of everything.
We humbly offer our prayers to the Buddha.月の日課で見る大夢様は花別ですね。本当にね、心が洗われるようですね。